You're listening to With God All's Possible Internet Radio, and I'm Mark Bixler. And joining me right now is a friend of mine, Tommy Renfro. He is a Christian music artist from the Dayton, Ohio area, regional artist. And Tommy, we want to say welcome to With God All's Possible Internet Radio.
It's so glad to be here with you, Mark. I appreciate it.
You know, we've talked periodically about doing some interviews, and since all this came up with COVID-19, and I wish I had 2020 vision, because I probably would have went back and bought stock in Zoom and some of those, because they have really taken off. A lot of schools, churches, a lot of places. I know you've had some Christian music artists are using them to put on Christian concerts as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Zoom was prepared either for the amount of traffic they were going to receive, but it's been a nice connection in this time of distance.
Zoom is not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about is your ministry, music ministry. But before we get to that, I want to just talk to you. I've known you since you were probably uh, late elementary school, junior high. I've known your mom and dad, um, and but I I have to admit, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but in all that time that I knew you through sports, not through music. And so when I started seeing you do some music things, it kind of caught me off guard a little bit, but not in a bad way, um, not in the least. But tell us a little bit about growing up in West Central Ohio.
Well, I grew up about a mile and a half from the Indiana border, so straddling the Ohio-Indiana line, out in the country. I grew up with two parents who were educators, and that was my life. My mom and dad both taught at Tri-Village High School, a very small rural district in Western Ohio. And I grew up a gym rat. As Mark alluded to, my dad was a 34-year basketball coach, and so that was also part of my life. And the other part, and the most important part, was that I was a drug baby. I was drugged to church Sundays, Wednesdays, Sunday nights, every time the doors were open. And so my passion for music started at an early age inside the walls of the church, and I guess just developed into a love for writing and music, and instrumental music and vocal music at a young age. But I also, as you said, Mark, I was an athlete and played 3 varsity sports in high school, and grew up on baseball fields, and um, grew up in a district that did not have football, so I took up golf in the fall, and that is still a huge passion of mine. So just lots of things that occurred as a result of being active in small town USA.
Now, I am going to say that for those listening in the Tri-Village School District right now, um, at that time, they did not have football. They
Correct.
have since added football. So, um,
And I no longer live in the district, but it's wonderful being an alumni and a former faculty member at Tri-Village Local to see the buzz that's created in the fall now, and the community rallying around.
absolutely. And you played on some pretty good basketball teams at Tri-Village as well. Although, and Lee Faulkner, I think he was your coach every year that you played varsity, correct?
He absolutely was.
Yeah, and I can remember Lee back in the 80s as the coach, maybe even late 70s, um, when he was coaching. Took a little bit of a break and then came back, and 2 long extended terms as varsity coach at Tri-Village, and was very successful there as well. Although the next coach, I can't remember if it was the next coach or the one after following, um, they eventually did win a state championship. Lee got them there one time, and actually played for a state championship back in the late '80s.
Yeah, 1991 was the
Yeah,
the team that went to Columbus and made it to the state championship game. 2014, is that right? Made it to the
somewhere
Final
around there.
Four, and
Yeah.
then 15 went 30-0 and a state championship. So, yeah, Coach Faulkner was more than just a coach to me, being like a brother to my dad. He was a second father to me, and still is very active part of our lives in the Renfro family. So deeper than just a coach, a love that was both professional guidance and spiritual guidance and parental guidance as well.
And I will say, the entire Faulkner family um, was not just Lee, but all of his siblings, and uh, very. I can remember his brother Lee playing for the New Madison Mohawks back in the early '70s, before Tri-Village even came into existence. So a very athletic family, and I'm sure that's where, or I should say, Lyle Lee probably played for New Madison as well, is my guess.
Yes,
Because I think he's older than, I won't say for sure, but I think he's older than Lyle. So,
he is.
but um, uh, you have progressed, still doing some sports things, but you currently lead worship. You've gotten into music, and you lead worship at Grace Baptist Church in Troy. Tell us how that came about.
Well, Mark, do you want me to start at the beginning and lead up to that?
Well, yeah, let's go back to your the time and how you got interested in music, and because I know a couple people that is friends of mine, and I know they're very dear friends of yours. Uh, no, they no longer live in the Tri-Village School District as well, which is Hollinsburg, New Madison, and Palestine. I still have family that live in Palestine. Uh, but uh, and I did you go to Cedar Grove Church of the Brethren?
I did
Okay,
growing up.
so
Absolutely did.
that's you definitely not only had them in school, but you had them in church as well, and that would
Correct.
be Carol and Eric Flora.
I was going to start with that actually, Mark. So that's a great segue. um, Carol and Eric, Mr. and Mrs. Flora were huge influences in me. But the great thing about living here in what I call the bubble in the Midwest is that, especially in small town Midwest, everybody knows everybody, and the values that are the community ooze into the values that are the school, and that's what builds strong character when students come back and then sow into those communities or go to others. And it was wonderful because I was a three-sport athlete. I was also president of the choir, and I was also a trumpet player in the band. And so I uh, was just as influenced musically as I was athletically. And we talk about this now all the time, that kids today, there's so often this misconception that I need my time. I don't even remember my time. My time was all of these things. I go to golf practice in the morning in the summer, go to a shoot around for basketball, and then go march in a parade in that evening for band. And this was a typical day. And so my passion for music started early. It started in church, as I said before, singing in the children's choir at Cedar Grove Church of the Brethren when I was a kid. And being active in choir, band and choir in school, doing things like solo and ensemble contests. And my mom put me in piano at a young age. I think I was about 6 when I started piano, and I hated it. Hated everything about it. Didn't want to do it. Cried every week. But it gave me a foundation of learning to read music that helped me when I got into band and choir. And then when I was about 12, I started, we switched churches to Triumphant Christian Center in Greenville. And a lot of that reason was because I started leading worship there in their youth group. and still have a great admiration for my foundation at Cedar Grove, and then moved to Triumphant Christian Center, where I became their youth worship leader about 14 years old. And in that time, developed a passion for piano, in which I started studying things like the Nashville number system and learned to read by ear, or learned to play by ear. But that foundation that I had in piano helped me. But learning to play by ear and teaching myself how the piano breathes started a passion for songwriting as well. And so I was about 14 years old when that occurred. And then at 15, started a Christian rock band called Tidal Wave. That was my first experience in a corporate setting of worship, not just singing specials or playing and singing at church, but um, from the time I was 15 to 18, we were pretty active in the Midwest area doing fairs, festivals, youth camps, worship services, things like that.
And you mentioned Triumphant Christian Center, uh, and they have ties to the Tri-Village School District as well.
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
and my memory, I know the name, I cannot think of it right off the top of my head. The pastor and his wife.
Sam and Debbie Shalott,
Yes.
and their daughter Annette is currently the guidance counselor at Tri Village, so there's still a tied to the Tri Village district. Um, but that was such a great experience, and I come back to, not only was I, playing golf, basketball, and baseball at Tri Village and in music in the school, but also fronting this Christian rock band. So there were many days in a school year where I would go to, let's say, a Tuesday or a Thursday night rehearsal from 7 to 9:30 after I was at practice from 4 to 6. And so it was just go take a shower, get in the car, drive to rehearsal, rehearse for a while, go back, play a Friday night game, play a Saturday night game, go do a Sunday evening youth worship service in Decatur, Indiana, or something like that. So it was just always going.
Well, and you mentioned about being very active at your school. That's just the way small schools are. I grew up, attended Ansonia, a rival of Tri-Village, I guess, if you want to call it that. Our main rival was Mississinawa Valley and Versailles, but you know, you participated in everything, and you weren't just a one sport player like a lot of kids and a lot of parents. But that's a totally different issue.
That's a
Uh,
different topic for a different
we're gonna
day.
stay away from that one. But but you participated in multiple sports and multiple activities. You know, like the theater. You know, you might participate in that. Um, Different things, obviously, like you said, the chorus and band were things that you just always participated in.
And
You know?
I'll bring that back full circle, Mark, and say all of those experiences, helped create drive
Mhm.
and focus and molded who I am today. It wasn't a singularity of one of those, but it was about faith sowing into the community, and the community sowing that back into me. And that is something that I'll forever be grateful for.
Now you have transitioned. You still do. You go out and, well, right now everything's on hold, but you once everything is opened back up again, you'll still go out and do ministry, music ministry at churches and that type of thing. And that's something that you were doing prior to the stay-at-home orders, was going out and putting on concerts or leading worship at different churches that maybe you were doing a concert at.
Yeah, so I'll transition from high school into music career, Mark, and I'll get up to where I am now. When I was in my 20s, I switched from Christian rock to Southern gospel for 7 years, and I did, let's see, 5 albums in 7 years. Um, just lots of classics because I grew up in Southern gospel music. My parents are from southeastern Kentucky, And so a lot of the influences of the Happy Goodmans and the Stamps and Gold City and people like that were big influences in me as a kid, because they were always playing in my house or in the car with mom and dad. And so I left and went back to my roots there. And I used to, when I was in college and when I came out of college for a while, I was doing 80 to 90 dates a year with lots of Southern gospel artists. Some of them are huge now in Southern gospel. So, so excited to see where God took their careers. But as a songwriter, I wasn't a Southern gospel writer. And so it wasn't that I was a contemporary writer, kind of stuck somewhere in the middle. And as you know about platforms of music and radio and Christian music, too often we've just put music in these boxes. And you're either worship or you're AC or your inspo or your Southern gospel. And my music really didn't fit into any of them. They're country influences and Southern gospel influences, but it wasn't Southern gospel enough to be played on Southern gospel radio. And so I decided in my mid 20s that I was going to just write the way that God brought it out of me. And so in 2010, I did my first full length album that was completely original material. And um, I guess people liked it. And in 2011, I got signed by a label in Nashville called Mission House Music. I was on that for 3 years before the label kind of got eaten up by the big players, like Capital CMG and some of those. And as a result, it kind of left me in limbo. But the great thing is, at the end of that stint, I met my wife, and so ended up getting married and pulling back a lot after we found out we were having our first child. Pulled back from doing 80 dates a year. Props to those guys who can still be great dads and do 150 concerts a year. That balance is something that I would not be able to figure out. So as a result of that, in 2017, I was lucky and for God to open a door for me to step into music ministry in a vibrant body at Grace Baptist in Troy, Ohio, where it's a great size. I love it. We're about 400 plus, just a little over 400 members, so it's large enough to do events, small enough to know people and have relationships. And I work with a wonderful team of about 30 AV AV people, background singers and musicians. And so that's kind of where I am now. And so now I get to minister and still do music every week the same way. And I only go out maybe 10 or 15 times a year to other places.
Well, tell us about some of your songs, and there's one I want you to hold back on just yet. I don't want you to talk about it because I want to bring it up, and that's one that you wrote in memory and in honor of your dad. And but tell us a little bit about some of the other songs, how they came about.
Well, I think if you go back to the first album that I did, it was called Till They Ask Why. And um, as a songwriter at the time, I was writing and writing and writing. It's just who you are when you become a songwriter. I probably wrote 500 songs in a few years and had to cut 40 of those to 11 for that record. And when they all came about, the big overarching theme was the Great Commission. You know, go into the world and preach the good news of the gospel. And that's what it came about: is love people and meet them where they are. And so the title track on that album, Till They Ask Why, I wrote that song when doing a benefit in Dayton, in the North Dixie Drive area, which is kind of a lower socioeconomic place with a lot of, we would call them possibly sinful places, adult entertainment places and things like that. And so the benefit was strange to me at the time. It was um, an organization called Oasis House that went into those adult entertainment businesses and ministered to the girls that work there. And they took them dinners and loved on them. And I went up to the CEO of the organization and said, uh, "How do you continue to do this when uh, there's so much PMS, or premeditated sin, in this case?" And they said, it really, really stopped me and changed a big part of who I am. And they said, Tommy, all we do is love them till they ask why. And then we tell them, Jesus died for you. That's why we do this. And so the whole album was birthed out of that song that I wrote, about loving people where they are and sharing the love of Christ with people. And then I wrote another song called I Want to Go, which is this kind of upbeat, happy song that just suggests I want to go where the doors open, Lord. Um, I want to go where you call me to go, kind of thing, which is that Great Commission mission. And so the rest of the songs on there kind of are glue that put those two ideas together: love people, be open to the calling. And so that was a lot of the beginning.
Yeah, and that kind of we partner with a group called Kingdom Life Peoria, and they're starting to expand out, and we still go by Kingdom Life Peoria in the Peoria area, but there's been some other areas that have expressed an interest in what is happening within this ministry, and I'm on the board of directors, and I have to tell you, it really I this group is about missions, and it's about discipling, making disciples, but making those disciples understand that they need to make have people bring people to Jesus and make disciples too. And so reaching out and loving on them, that's important. There's no question about that. Just love them where they are. Exactly. Now
Yeah,
I want to
totally agree.
I want to transition. There's a song, and we're going to play this song next hour. Um, and when this airs at 6:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Central Time is when this will be airing. But you wrote a song, and I tell you, every time I listen to it, it brings tears to my eyes because I know what it's about, and it's about your dad. Um, and I'm probably going to make you cry too. And I don't mean to do that, but your dad was a special person, and I think you saw that in him. I loved when I would videotape ball games. Um, Before the varsity game, I would sit. He'd be at the door to the gym, and I'd just sit there and just chat with him about sports, you know, faith, whatever he wanted to talk about, we talked about. And I just thoroughly enjoyed my conversations with him. And I have to tell you, the song is called Miss You. And I miss that man being able to come to Tri Village and sit down and chat with him. But I know one day we're going to both get that chance to talk to him again.
Oh, amen to that. I can set up the song, Mark, just a little bit. Um, After the label folded in 2013, when I was in that limbo state, I was still doing a lot of concerts at the time, and I tried to save every dollar that I made to do a new record. And I didn't want to do it without a spirit of excellence. And so on a whim, I just reached out to people that I knew in Nashville and got some numbers. And I made a call to a guy that I thought there was no possible way would work with me, because there are, 3 or 4 producers in Christian music that I went, this would be the ultimate dream to be able to work. And so I said, why not call my favorite? And so I was a huge fan of Third Day. I'm still a huge fan of Third Day. And so I reached out to the producer of their last 2 records and their keyboard player, Scotty Wilbanks in Atlanta. And I sent him the Till They Ask Why record. And I said, I want to do a new album. You're my favorite producer. And would you take a listen to it? And I didn't get anything for, I don't know, 10 or 12 days. And I thought, oh, he gets all kinds of stuff. He's working with all the label rostered artists. He's not going to work with me. I get a phone call from him, and he says, hey man, I really like your sound. I'd be happy to work with you. What can we do? And so it was amazing to set up that process. So my wife and I went to Atlanta. We got to sit down in the studio where, with at the time it was some other musicians from, let's see, the Museum was one of the bands, one of the musicians that was in there. um, let's see, country artist. One of the guy that played drums was from the band Perry, and so it was just this amazing time of music and faith that I got to experience. And as a result, we tried to lay out the path for this EP that I was going to do. And I listen to a lot of other writers because obviously big producers like that get pitched songs from other writers that they want independent artists to try, like me. So I did a couple of those, and one of those is "It's Gonna Be Okay," which is a great song also that I did not write. But "Miss You," I said I really want to write a song on this EP, and I kept writing and sending probably 20 songs to production, and they'd say you have to have big shoulders when you work with Grammy winners. And they said, um, I think it was, oh, this is a hit song. This sounds great. And they go, you got something else? Not really that good. And so you go, oh, kind of a growth mindset. It's not right. Not there yet. And so it was the 5th anniversary of my dad's passing. I sat down at the piano and I'm trying to write for this record. So it was April 2nd, 2015. And I said, I can't think of anything else. I'm at that point, I was 30 years old, and I admit my dad had been gone 5 years. In that 5 years, I'd got married. Um, we had got pregnant with our first child. There were all these emotions going through that that he missed.
Hmm.
And so I couldn't think of anything else. And I just sat down and I wrote this song. Um, they say time heals all wounds, but every day I miss you. And there's nothing truer than that. Every day that I live, every year it gets a little bit more difficult seeing our girls grow up and go through things and knowing how special every breath that they take would be to my dad makes it hard. So I wrote this song, I sent it to production. I looked at my wife and I said, this song doesn't fit in radio. It doesn't go here. Christian radio is probably not going to play it in the big stream. At that time, I was trying to make a second push to be a national touring artist because that was always my dream. And I said, this song's not going to work. They've been telling me everything. I get a call 20 minutes after I send it. It says, dude, this is the one. And I went, really? Really? This is the one? And it's hard to play for me, but I love doing it every time I get to do it out.
Yeah, your dad, both your mom and dad, very special people. And if you see your mom, tell her I said hi. No question. Just she's an awesome lady. I can't describe. I can't say anything more. Just a special lady. Now, what 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 does the future hold?
Oh, goodness, Mark. Well, I love what I'm doing now. I love being able to kind of be a musical shepherd in a for a flock of believers. I didn't know that I would enjoy it as much as I do working with the same team every week, especially when I was in hundreds and hundreds of different churches and venues over about 10 years of my life. Actually, probably 15 years of my life in at least 15 to 20 states. And so it becomes well, first off, I thought I might get stagnant, but I really am enjoying this leadership role as a worshiper. What does the future hold? Well, right now my future holds being a worshiper and being a dad. um, and in my day job outside of this, I'm a college professor, so that's what I do. And so I'm currently a doctoral student as well at Indiana University. So there's all kinds of things that go on in my life. I would love to record again. And I did some music 3 years ago that I held back that I just released. So you can get it on Amazon or Google Play and Spotify and Pandora and those outlets. Apple Music, I think, coming this week or next. And it's just a piano record that I did with some original songs that hadn't been recorded. But there's a song on there called Welcome Home that is one of my favorites that I've ever written outside of Miss You, which is probably the most special song. But there's a song on this new EP called Welcome Home, which is the title track. And it was in response to when my dad was battling the end of his life, and just thinking about one of my favorite songs, I Can Only Imagine, which paints this picture of heaven, but it's loose scripture. So I went back into the word and pulled out, what are we guaranteed based on the validity and the presentation of scripture of what we have when we leave this life. And so I sat down and penned some of that out into this song, and it's one of my favorites. And I did this, well, 2009, and so I never recorded it for as 8 years before I recorded it, because people kept saying, no, that song's too Southern gospel, or it's not contemporary enough. It doesn't fit into here or there. So I sat down at the piano, did this one, got a chance to go to Nashville, put this down at Dark Horse Studios, and it's still one of my favorites. It really takes you to what our promise is of heaven.
Well, our guest has been Tommy Renfro on With God All's Possible Internet Radio, and we certainly appreciate your taking time out and chatting with us a little bit and introducing you. We've been playing some of your music. We'll be adding the new stuff as well, and we're just thankful that that God has blessed you, and not just musically, but He's blessed you with a wife and children, and just and a great place to worship. And I have to say, we encourage people on Sundays. What we have been doing on the With God All's Possible Internet Radio Facebook page is we are sharing as many church services as we possibly can during this time of stay at home. And we encourage people to not only watch the church that you go to, but maybe that they attend, I should say, but maybe pick out some of the churches that we're posting and just see what they offer as well, and be fed in other ways that maybe they didn't even recognize. I like the meme on Facebook that shows the devil talking to God saying, see, I shut down all the churches. And God says, that's okay. I've opened up a church in every home. And I love that meme, because he has.
It's so true. We have to see the glass half full for sure. Where our physical service every week, and we stream it, and we put it out onto our website, but we have 400 bodies sitting there. We're getting 2,000 people logging into virtual services live, and so it's amazing because now the reach is going outside the walls. The walls are not the church; we are the church.
Mhm.
And as we send this out to people, for those out there that are not believers or haven't accepted Christ, that message is going out, and it's getting into homes in a way that we haven't been able to. So thank you, Mark. Thank you so much with God All's Possible Radio for all of these different services. I've called a few different churches on your feed, and it's so inspiring to see differences as we strengthen the unity within the body.
There was one Easter Sunday, I have to admit, it was I think it was Riverside Baptist Church in Juneau, Alaska, and they did it outside, and it was just the pastor and I think maybe a person leading worship, and maybe somebody playing the piano or something, if I remember right. But they had the mountain in the background, and I told my wife Teresa that I said, you know what, I might have disbanded the stay-at-home orders and just went out and worshiped if I lived there, just to take in God's scenery, because that just looked awesome to see that in the background and to listen to His word as well. Just was awesome. And but anyway, hey, we appreciate your taking time out and talking with us. Our guest, as we said, has been Tommy Renfro, a Christian music artist from the Dayton, Ohio area. And again, thank you, Tommy.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to I want to hear it now. Wow, that's what we're calling this. So we appreciate everybody listening, And I'm Mark Bixler. This is With God All's Possible Internet Radio. Okay, now I'm going to